We are so excited to have Nour here today to tell us not only about her work at NUAer, but also about her trajectory to get there. Hi Nour, كيف حالك? How are you?
Okay, thank you. Hopefully, I'm so looking forward to do that.
Nour is from Gaza. She actually studied at the same university as my co-founder Leila Abu Dahi, Al Azhar University in Gaza. She now lives in Norway, where she is working as a technical and director and developer at NUAer, focusing on software development and IT operations support. She has over 10 years of experience as a consultant and software developer, and her expertise in utilizing information systems to meet the demands of modern business operations is unmatched. Nour, to start, I have to ask you about your t-shirt. For people who aren't with us here in the studio, they can't see it, so I'm going to read it. It says, I'm a programmer, I think. I'm a programmer. They're all crossed off. There's like different ways of spelling programmer, and then it says, I write code. What's up with the t-shirt?
I get like a present from my husband. It was like Christmas, and the whole concept, because I'm not English native speaker, so I always do all these mistakes, and I always try to explain stuff. And with Arabic, we have a big problem between saying the B and the B. So he struggled with me in the beginning when we first met what I actually do. And I spent ages and ages. And then he was like, I told him, I write code, dude. So he just get me that t-shirt after. So we always remember that story.
Oh my god, did he make the t-shirt himself or did he find this?
I don't know. Probably they design it, but he found it. Like he got me like bunch of t-shirts like that, nerdy ones, just like But someone like me, oh my god, they're so lovely. I love it. So yeah, I have been wearing it for maybe 10 years.
That's awesome. So Nour, tell us about how you got to where you are today. I know it's an incredible story, probably a lot of parts to it. So start wherever you want.
Yeah, a good question. Like as you said, I graduated from Gaza in 2008. And after that, I was working in Gaza. And after that, for a reason or another, I get outside Gaza to do some sort of conference thing. And of course, how is it the situation in Palestine? Another war started, and obviously the whole situation got a little bit complicated. So I ended up surrounded in a country which was Norway. It was random. It was pure coincidence. But later on, I really fell in love with that country. I get opportunity
Let
to
me
do what I
just
want.
jump in to make sure I understand. So you were in Norway when a war started in Gaza, and so you ended
Exactly.
up having to stay in Norway. Wow.
Exactly. Which was horrible at that time, because imagine like having someone who is like first time. That was my first time to leave Gaza alone. Like I left Gaza
First
before, but
time
always,
leaving Gaza.
yeah. Like I always left with my family. Like how is it? So that was the first time actually to dare and do something by myself. But I was lucky enough. I was with my sister, who was like 2 years older than me. And when the war started, it was horrific. You didn't. I was like more worried about my family. How is it going there? And you totally forget. But we were like in a safe area. And after things calmed down, I get opportunity to do start with the language, wait a bit longer. You know what I mean? And then just like coincidence happen. You start making a network. You start working. Start getting excited about this and that while you are connected to everything else. But let's say it like I really used to be open for new opportunities. So that was an opportunity, but I didn't imagine that it would last that long, just say it like that. But
Yeah.
like you start and then, okay, it's just a little bit language, a little bit it's study, and then you meet someone and then like friends, and then you fall in love, and then like just life happens basically.
Well, that is a life happening version on steroids, I've got to say. Tell us about how you decided to start studying Norwegian and what was it like learning an entirely new language?
The language thing is really interesting always. I think it's like it's always give you opportunity to understand the people better. And as I said, it was like the first time to leave Palestine. I always travel to Arabic country, so for me it was always classic to understand what the people are talking around in the bus. But suddenly I was in a country where people talking about stuff, and I'm just out of nowhere not understanding a word. So it was a pure curiosity. You start reading signs, and I think because it wasn't English, and you always have these volunteer people who want to introduce the language, because I believe language is part of the culture. When you get to the language, you understand more, you connect with people more, you start understanding. Like the same with Arabic. Like my colleagues, before I wouldn't speak Arabic in front of them, because I don't want to, people assume that we are angry, like then you have to go through it and try to
Wait,
let
what
them
do you
hear.
mean? What do you mean they assume you're angry when you speak Arabic?
Yes. Didn't you notice that before? Like, if you went to any working place and I would start talking with my kids on the phone in Arabic, people would just like, what is happening? Are you all right? Like, dudes, we're chilling. This is like a normal conversation. You don't need to worry about it. But after that, I noticed maybe I need to introduce more Arabic words. Like the only Arabic word that we actually use here is yalla. And funny enough, in English, yalla, it's mean like Arabic, let's do it. But in Norwegian, if you say yalla, that's mean that it's like done in a dodgy way, yalla way.
Oh no! Oh no, it has a bad meaning. Oh, and that's such an important word in Arabic. It's one of my favorite words.
I know. But then I discovered that what I can do is like be more like, it take a few years, just to be fair about that. It took me a few years, but when I start to get comfortable around the people around me, then I would be open to speak Arabic in front of them. I would teach them a bit of phrases here and there. And I was thinking like, even if I'm listening to a bit of music, I would take the headphone off and try to like, this is how it sounds, like it's different.
I don't think it's fair for people from the Arab world to have to feel like they're the black sheep and to have to hide your culture for so long. And it is not my experience as a Polish American when I move or I travel. It's the exact opposite. Everybody's always curious, wants to learn my language, wants to hear about my culture. But when I see my Palestinian friends or even Manara alumni when they relocate to Europe, there is this common theme of feeling like you have to hide where you're from, not sure what people will think when they find out that you're from the Arab world, and especially Palestine. There seems to be some stigma associated with it. What's your experience of that, Nour? What do you think about it?
I could not agree more. I mean, it is a classic theme between all the people, and I would say it's two parts. One part is like us putting this pressure on ourselves, and the other part, let's face it, is like stereotype. To start with the Arab part, I mean, like even my story is much easier than my brother's story. My brother's name is Muhammad, and he is like bigger than me, big guy, big like beard. So like it's a stereotype of things. When we are in the airport, we have to be stopped, no matter what. Like every time I travel to any place, like you look like it's I think this is something to do with the whole wrong assumptions that is made around the whole Arab area. And I think it's getting better now because a lot of people are understanding more with the connection with the internet, we with the even the like the latest political revolution. People start to understand that we are not one kind of people. We are different. We agree and disagree internally with each other. So I think that's the first part, that people just like, they would judge you naturally. And the other part, I think it's in our heads. Like we instinctively, we don't want to have a high profile because like we have so strong opinions about our own, like, like, I don't know, like as a Palestinian, I really believe in our case. I'm really proactive about it. But at work, I will never mention it because I don't want to have this situation where I put some other people in front of me uncomfortable talking about it. So usually I will like rarely, until someone comes to me and insists to ask me where I'm from, I wouldn't throw it on the table. While like, you see all the other people, Latin American people, so proud, they throw it everywhere. They wanna share it with you. While I don't wanna, because and in my case in Norway, I experienced that it's black and white. Either people really pro-Palestinian, love us, or not big fan of us. Just say it like that. So you don't want to end up with these discussions. And I personally think if I get comfortable with people and get to a certain level where I'm actually comfortable, I am happy to share. I'm happy to make awareness, even inviting for things I believe it's related. But until I get to this stage, I would never actually mention it.
Let's transition to the part of your professional development. Were you a software engineer when you arrived to Norway?
Yes, I had a bachelor, as I said, from Gaza. But of course, I tried to apply for normal job first as a software developer, and I ended up nowhere. And I have one interview where a guy asked me if we have computers in Gaza, and I was like, "Dude, I'm having bachelor's like software engineering, and you're telling me if you have computers? No, we did it all on the screen." I was like, and I have that sense of sarcasm. It didn't help me, and I didn't get the
Oh,
call
God.
back anyway. And I ended up thinking, all right, what shall I do? Like as an active person, what would I do? So I ended up doing jobs which is focusing more about like language. So I ended up doing all sorts of like, working with kids, doing support here, doing there, working like different kind of jobs, but nothing to do with the IT.
What do you mean jobs that have to do with language? You mean with learning Norwegian or with using the
Yes,
Arabic?
like instead, no, you go to, for example, kindergarten, where all the kids, like 1 to 3, where they actually speak Norwegian, but in the same level like me. So I would start there where I can learn and then can communicate with them. But in the same time, that was not my future. This is not what I thought for myself it's going to be. Then I decided, okay, the only way I would go to that world is to do a master from Norway. So the university name is something they can relate to. Because classic story, I was like one of the top students in Palestine. So in my head, I was like, look at my like grades is great. How you're not taking
You
me?
went to Al Azhar University. Of course they should want you, right? And they're like, what the hell is Al Azhar University? Yeah.
I know. So it's like it was like this way like of like being so proud about yourself with the tiny bit of experience you had, and then they are like, what are you talking about? We cannot relate. However, I thought, okay, I do a master. One part
And
of
how
it,
how
let's
did you figure that out, Noor? Because nobody was there to guide you and explain to you, like, your resume is not making it past the resume screens because nobody has heard of Al Azhar University, right? So
yes, this is what I tell to anyone traveling to another country. If you didn't have a contract, first thing, check the educational way. Because it's hard way. You have to go, you have to apply for a place. That place is going to take months and months until they approve that your certificate is actually what it is. And with the education system from a country to another country, actually you might end up doing a bit over what you needed to. However, I was lucky enough that my bachelor get recognized as a bachelor. So for me, it was not a question. If I wanted to do software engineering as I really wanted to do, I have to have a 2 years master. The lucky part is that the education in Norway is for high education is for free. And
oh,
that
wow.
is, yes, that what made the whole story easy. Because when I say that story to all my friends all over places in the world, like, what? You didn't need to pay? No, I didn't need to pay. So for me, as long as I managed to go through the papers, prove that actually I have that bachelor, I could apply like as any person in Europe or any person like basically as a, yeah, you don't need to pay anything except like tiny bit of like fees.
And looking back, do you still feel like that master's degree was primarily just to have the credential, just to have a name on your resume that people recognized? Yes, I see you nodding your head. So you don't feel like you needed it for the learning. It was literally just to get your foot in the door.
It
This I
is,
want
yeah.
yeah, the reason I'm asking is because at Manara, one of the main things that we're trying to do differently is people in the Middle East and Palestine and the whole region today, often they think their only step to go abroad, if that's what their dream is to go study first. That
Yeah.
there is no other open door. And we're like, well, what if the world needs your software engineering skills now and studying is going to waste 2 years of your time and potentially waste a lot of money as well if you don't have a scholarship or free studies, right? So that's why we've been connecting people to top tech companies that, Google, Meta, startups, et cetera, directly out of college, but it's a lot harder for them to make that connection to pass those interviews, and that's kind of the whole point. So absolutely get it. Like this is the problem that we're trying to solve basically.
Exactly, but seriously, it's so spot on. It's I believe that Manara is solving a serious issue because you are taking that barrier away from both sides. Because like I think both sides, let's say the graduate in the Middle East and the companies that are here, it's just like there is like miscommunication or a bit of ignorance about each other. So when I came here, I really didn't know how to apply. I didn't know how to write a CV that can relate in my head, which is classic for square, like Middle East style, I have to have another degree, and this degree has to be top score to be able to show them a good again, which is not even valid anymore. It's we know that software engineer and theistic people they actually can do that without having a degree. So having that mindset, it's like when I heard about Manara, I was like, oh my god, this is what I needed to hear about 10 years ago. You know, but so giving that opportunity now, I think is just a gold opportunity. You are giving it to both sides, and again, the tech company are having access to super like resources, which I
Yeah.
really believe they are dedicated. They are like willing to do the extra mile because they appreciate everything in different perspective.
Oh, absolutely. And it's always hard to find good talent. I mean, one of the whole reasons we launched Manara was not only to support people like you who should have had it 10 years ago, but also we were trying to hire people to our companies. And Layla was like, I wish I could hire my friends from Gaza. How do we connect them to
Yeah.
these jobs? Yeah. What about your software engineering career? So you graduated from university. What was your first job and what was that like?
Yes, so I picked up like summer job when I was at the university. So after like 1 year, I started to work as a developer. I was open for both. I focused primarily on the back end. So I really, really burned for it. But at some situation, I ended up needing to step in for the front end. So I like raised my hands and I joined in and I actually worked in it. So I call myself now like a full stack developer. I do a lot of when it comes like cloud services, infrastructure, because I have the interest to do with the whole software development from A to Z. So I'm not one of the developers who doesn't like to meet with customers. I love to see how the whole story start from like requirements, how we go through it, develop it like to small milestones, and then we start to work in it, doing the Scrum style, and then after that deliver. So I was lucky all the time to work in like teams which everyone is heard and seen. Since then I don't think like yeah, I took different direction, but all the time I'm doing programming, which I'm planning to continue doing it. I took like recently a master in management, but after I figured out I really enjoy coding, so I think I'm gonna stuck for coding for a few years still.
And what was it like in your very first job?
Yes, a good question. Like, just to give a feedback, I don't know how is it in the US, but in Norway we don't have a lot of female developers. So when I studied, I was one out of three girls in the whole class. The other girl was Iranian, and one Norwegian girl who dropped out.
Oh my
So,
god!
so my
Versus
first
in Palestine, what was it like at Al Azhar? What was
sixty
the gender
percent
ratio?
girls, 60% girls,
Yeah.
40% boys is no doubt about
Yeah.
it. You know how is it? No, we had girls more than boys, and we had
Were
the
you
girls
shocked?
actually. I was surprised. I was surprised, and with my little head, I was like, oh my god, girls can drive the trucks outside on tractor, and they don't want to do IT. It's like because with like equality with the gender roles, it's amazing here. Women do everything. I mean, the prime minister in Norway is woman. Like all the top leaders in all political parties are women. Like they are really working hard for equality. Like in our perspective, except IT. When it comes to IT, for some reason, we don't have enough girls. Just say it like
Do
that.
you know why? Are there any hypotheses?
I think it's something to do with the fact that when they are at school, it's like the way they were selling like the IT thing is like it's more maths, it's boring. I think some stereotype about the girls being nerdy with the glasses and she's gonna be left behind. You know what I mean? Like you want to be the cool girl who is not that girl. And I
Oh
think
my
it's
god.
changing. Yeah, but it's a
Yeah.
changing. It's a changing, and now they are doing a lot of programs, which I really burn for, and I'm absolutely all in for it to try to introduce girls in early ages that it's not about maths and science. It could be more about logic. It could be easy. Like, I think it's more, yeah. But it's
Well,
interestingly to
well,
see the.
wait a minute. Even if it is about math and science, that's great for girls too. This is the thing that actually struck me when I went to Gaza and is the whole reason that we launched Manara is that I grew up with stigma around math and science in the United States, feeling like boys were better. I was getting freaking A's in my college in my classes. I took uh multivariable calculus in university when I was in high school still, and I still had a chip on my shoulder around my ability to do math and science because I thought I wasn't as good as my brother or the boys, right? Then I arrived to Gaza and I'm talking to women about the stigma that we have in the West around women and science and math. And every single person was like you, where they're like, what are you talking about? Women are better at these fields. We're 60% of these classes. Our moms are all physics teachers, right? And so I just want to say women can do math and science. They can be really good at that and gorgeous, and attractive and everything else that supposedly a woman is supposed to be.
I
Cool, like you
know.
said.
I really, I don't get it. And exactly as you said, because I'm coming from a culture where like women do it like without even like sweating it. I never felt unique in Palestine. Everyone was like in my class, good girls with the top score. But when I came to Norway, I was like, okay, I'm gold. Like, it's here, not a lot of girls who are doing that. And yeah, so I think that actually helped. So that story led us to the original story. So every time I joined a team, it would be 9 guys and me. And no stereotype, but IT guys are, it used to be, they are not very social. They don't want to start this conversation around lunch. So I always convince
I'm very
myself.
okay with that stereotype, actually. I know we usually try not to stereotype, but that unfortunately really is the majority, and it does make it hard as the first woman on a team to make friends. And yes, totally.
But to be fair, like now it's changing again. Like now, actually, like, and I'm gonna give that like for my colleagues, they actually IT guys are changing. They creating like a new image. But I always had this like having a team of 9 guys. It just gives you always the support because they try to be nice anyway.
I am thrilled to hear that was the case because I don't know that that's always the case. So you always felt completely comfortable as the only woman on all of these it sounds like multiple engineering teams where you were the first woman or only woman, and you were
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
comfortable with it.
I mean, after that, later on, I managed to get to a teams where I have like 2 girls, one tester, one developer, and that was this dream team. Everyone was talking about it. We have like 3 girls in the team, and they were super role models. They were like the girls that show you how it's done. You just do, you stand up, you stand. And this is the interesting part because when you find girls in IT, they're usually taking leading roles and taking their place, and they are willing to like taking both sides. So I think I was lucky enough to have all these good role models in front of me that it just led me to yeah, getting where I am.
Let's touch base a little bit on the actual work as a software engineer. What were your biggest surprises out of college? Did you just immediately know everything that you needed to do as a software engineer? Was your university education enough? And if not, what's your advice, I guess, for somebody who's just starting in a software engineering role?
I would say university has nothing to do with the real work, nothing. Just prepare you to learn fast, really. But if you finish university and you think that you're ready to, I mean, you have to get a bit of self confidence that you spend all these years in university, then you have the tool set that you need. But you don't need to be terrified when you start a new chapter. And actually, there's a lot of things to learn. I think it's overwhelming mentally, but step by step, you can do it. And I think the expectations, as long as you're clear, when you need help, you can just ask. When you're approaching other people, when you try to divide the big like bunch into smaller things and try to take it step by step. And I always think like try to ask and don't like I think this transparency, if you are transparent all the time about how you feel, where you are, you need help or you need more tasks to do, it's the way to go.
Can you give an example of that from your own experience? I actually can think of one,
Yeah, go
which is
ahead.
it's actually a Manara alum. It just popped in my mind all of a sudden when I heard you say that. Of She moved to Sweden, so very close to you. She moved from Morocco, and the first time she was given a task, she was just like, "Oh God, okay, I don't know this programming language, and I have to deliver this code in a language that I don't even know. I'm gonna just stay up all night for multiple nights to get my sprint tasks done, right?" And she saw another colleague a couple weeks later who said, "Oh, okay, I need to do this. Well, we first need to build in a sprint for me to learn the language, and then build in a sprint for me to develop the task." And so basically putting learning into the plan as a part of your job as opposed to something that you have to do during your nights and weekends. It's almost like a way of asking for help, right?
It's amazing, but that is a very, very good thing, actually. And I always say, like, when you are in an interview, that is something you should ask about. You should ask how you're going to get me on board, how you're going to get me to know the system, understand what you're doing and the details, how you do things. And I think, like, the earlier you ask about this stuff, the better it is for you to have a bit more of like internal peace because this is how things are going to go. And when you give such a questions, like if you think nothing's ahead, it's just giving the workforce a great idea that you're actually ready to rock and roll, but you need to have the tools that you need. And usually, like 90% of the times that I have been involved, they give you that period to learn. you know. But if you just, no, 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 I get it. And then you're pressuring yourself. And this is something I think to do, like we do always pressure ourselves to be trying to perform better. And this is, I think, what we need, just to be more open about it. Don't just say where you are, what you need, and they will just work around it, you know?
And you're always gonna be learning. You're always gonna walk into a job where you don't know everything. I was talking to a Manara mentor, her name is Jan Chong, who said that at their startup, they recently hired somebody who arrived and was trying to build code and launch it, but the DevOps process was broken and they didn't have a DevOps engineer at the time or something. It was his first week on the job, and she was like, "Great, welcome to the startup. Figure out how to fix it. Not your job, not what we hired you for, but figure it out." And everyone's always figuring things out, Googling it, putting things together.
Yeah, and now we have the co-pilot. You know, now we have someone to write with code. It's no problem. But I think this is what I
Chat
always discuss.
GPT.
Yes.
GPT.
This is what I think is really important. I think it's more, the more flexible we are, the more it's something to do with the mindset. I think this is more important, that you try to get to a situation. All right, this is what I have, how I'm going to deal with it. It's better than just to work so hard and you have less energy, mental energy, that you cannot cope with the other things. You stay up all night and in the morning, in the meeting, you have a breakdown because you got so much overwhelming. Well, save that energy in the stand-up meeting. Try to mention that maybe we need to have that, so I think it's more about, but again, this is what we started our talk about. We need to be comfortable. You have to have this safety net in the working place, that people dare to say that, because this is important. And I think this is something to do with the companies. It's nothing to do with the people applying for the jobs. We have to give that space to people to actually be able to say that.
So how should companies do that?
I think definitely, like, safety net, like safety by doing it, like by making people comfortable, by involve people, instead of like, when we are planning a sprint, exactly as you said, it shouldn't be like, ah, this is what we have to do. Start with a background. How is it going around the room? How are we feeling? Where you think you can produce more? Where are you comfortable here? Do we need to do pair programming? Do we need to have two people helping each other here? Do you think you want to shadow people in the beginning? I mean, we have to ask all these questions, and people have right to say yes or no. So I believe that try to ask all the time, then expect people to be proactive and come to you. And this is what I do, like, with our teams. I don't expect everyone there to raise their hand and come to you and tell you. It's your job as a leader to actually encourage people, like by asking this, by, I don't know, be nice, like genuinely nice, and be easy to talk to, so they can actually approach you, you know?
Yeah. And by offering things, because they don't know what they can ask for. They can't be proactive when they don't know what the options are, right? So
Yeah.
it's almost like giving them a menu. This is some things you should be asking for. Let me expose you to this one. Let me expose you to this one. Like, you're going to have pair programming this week. You're going to have a week to learn this technology this week. It's going to be built into the sprint. A few other things like that. And now you have the whole slew of things that you know that you can ask for. So now it's your job to start asking.
Absolutely. And to be vulnerable, it's really important to lead by giving example. Like, if you're standing there assuming that, "Oh, I can do all that, this is a piece of cake. I usually finish my feature in 2 minutes." You know what I mean? It's just like, if you don't show this weakness, like, okay, I'm really good with that back end. I always say it, but with the front end, I would spend longer time than other people, just to try to show that you're not good in everything. Otherwise, you're not giving a role model. And if you're a superhero at work, you're just making it everyone's else life really hard. So just to try to be, I don't know, yourself, like show that actually showing weakness is quite a good thing.
Love it, love it. What do you think is the potential for ChatGPT to help people, junior engineers, with their onboarding into their first ever roles? Like, if I were a junior engineer today, how might my life be different becoming a software engineer in my first role than it might have been 10 years ago when you were getting started?
I think it's really interesting times. I think it's really, really going to be interesting to see how we're going to utilize it. I believe that, to start with, it's going to be a challenging, because with ChatGPT you get a lot of answers, but you need to know how to ask. And this is one of the questions, the things that we talked about in the beginning. You don't know what to ask, and you need to have a bit of surroundings. I would say the company we should definitely utilize it in a good way, but they have to keep in mind that as a new starter, when you start a new job, you don't know what to ask. You don't know what is the, like, you need to feel the space. So I really hope that the introduction to people into new jobs is still involve people. It's involved. I think that few months in the beginning, you still need to have a person who assure you, explain to you, this is the scope of it, this is how much is it. And after the people are comfortable enough understanding the whole picture, then they can go ahead and start using Copilot and do that. However, as a new starter, I would definitely invite all of the graduate, go for it, is use it. It's like use it as your assistant for writing email description, explain things to me, but in the same time, be proud about using it. Don't have it hidden in your background and just look like you're trying to have it on and off. I think this is where it goes a bit dodgy. Like as long as you're open about it, use it because I use it. Everyone use it now. It's the one who doesn't use it are missing out. Just say it like that. But it's more the question: how can we utilize it in a way that we still do the thinking ourselves and just make us help and always you question the feedbacks. When it comes to I mean, but with the coding is, I must say, it's awesome because like you get like the error message that usually you would be struggling with for days and hours. You just get like hints how it's gonna. Oh, what about that? Did you try that? Did you try that? So I found it like sort of like a soul, like someone is just talking to. So yeah, I think definitely they should use it, but in the same time, be open about it. Don't take credit for anything.
Yeah, that's so awesome. That reminds me of the rubber duck system. Have you heard of the rubber duck thing? This is one of our engineers at Manara, Thiago Carvalho. He's from Brazil, but he worked in Berlin for many years. He's the one who taught me the rubber duck, which is when you're getting stuck, like you have a bug or you're something's not working and you don't know how to fix it. Sometimes you just need somebody else to talk to about it. Like you need so he would sometimes just bring a rubber duck and just talk to the rubber duck, like, what could possibly be wrong? I tried this, I tried that. For me, it's always like I call the tech lead. Of course, as soon as the tech lead shows up, I figured out the answer, right?
Yes.
So now instead of calling the tech lead, I could just call Chat GPT.
I could not relate more. I actually do that. Like usually I always start by asking a colleague to come in and help me. And by the time I finish explaining the thing from A to Z, you figured it out yourself. But sometimes it helps you to say it loud. So I hope that not all of us would use too much ChatGPT and we miss this communication between the developers because I think this is something really nice.
That's true too, right? Because when you're figuring it out yourself through saying it out loud, uh, it's first of all, it makes you proud of having figured it out, right? It's probably exercising a part of your brain,
Yeah,
which is important so we don't lose those muscles. But also, like you said, that might create a sense of connection with another coworker, a sense of vulnerability, so that they can ask questions. Or it
absolutely.
might spark some idea for them about something they were working on that they wouldn't have thought of otherwise.
Yes, and with a colleague, he's not just answering that question. It's usually some nice tip that it's gonna give you a general guidance in approaching the whole problem in different perspective. While ChatGPT give you the answer that you needed for that specific things, but usually always asking a question, like especially between developers, you end up having some new information, new website, a new tool, a new perspective of things. So yeah, it's just let's find the balance between still asking each other and nagging in each other on Teams and getting ChatGPT writing all the emails so it looks like good English.
When people from the Middle East and North Africa get hired at European companies, often they're either starting as a junior engineer or they might have 5, 7, 8 years of experience, but it's in a very different context. So, at companies that haven't had the opportunity to scale as much because there just aren't so many jobs in the region, we now have Enrami. There's a couple startups that are growing. Noon, Souk, of course, which was acquired by Amazon. Why should companies in Europe be seeking out this talent?
It's really good question, and I think it's misconception. Like regardless the fact that people worked for 8 years within software technology, I think like they still come in with pure knowledge and it's a pure way of practicing things. It could be like it's this space is different kind of things. We have startup, we have scale up, and we have well established companies, but in the bottom of it we are talking about software development within the teams, the same mindset, the same way of doing it, the same tool and attitudes. So I think like I experienced working for like well established companies and I have been in startup and I now am jumping into scale up. So I experience it. It's just different cups, but the water inside is the same, really. The whole core of it is the same. So I think if you are a good software engineer who adapt to things really quickly and you have that flexibility and adaptability, scalability, possibility, I think you will be an addition. And stamping things like what is the kind of organization that you're coming from, I think it's just like, I don't know, labeling it. It's just like old school. So usually in the interviews, I would just dig into more, give me stories. How did you fix that? How did you undo that? How did you show? Like, I think that we should think more about the like this kind of things, being flexible and all that, better than looking to more labels we were putting ourselves and other people in.
I love what you just said about interviews because so often for people who are coming from backgrounds like yours, the interview skills is a skill. It's a specific expectation around how to answer questions and how to practice that people coming from someplace like Gaza might not know, right? What advice do you have for an interviewer who's interviewing somebody who's coming from a background like that?
I think the first thing, try to make people really comfortable, because I think the first thing, people are usually nervous, and when we are nervous, we miss half of ourselves. Like I noticed 5 seconds ago, I stumbled, I get zoomed out, and I'm just like, you have to keep in consideration that people speak. This is not the first language, so people spend tiny bit of seconds actually like translating it. So you have to give them the space, the time, the comfort. We are not comfortable with the silence, like if in the Middle East we're not comfortable with it. Like we always have to fill the space, but you can indicate it in a very clear way. Take your time. It's okay to think. And I always tell it to mentor, like to the others in Manara. You can say, let me think about it and take 10 seconds. It's your right to collect your thoughts and just, and to be honest with you, this is something we never used to say to each other in the Middle East. You have to answer really quickly. And you notice that most of us, we speak quickly, we stumble, but we have to continue producing some sort of text instead of just stopping. We then get it just digested, and before you continue with that. So I would say for interviewers, please give them time. Try to indicate it very clearly that take your time, I'm here, and make them feel comfortable.
Yeah, and even saying something like, I know English is not your first language. If you're having trouble finding a word, just stumble through it. Like, I'm not here to grade your English. I would just want to understand your software engineering background. It's okay if we have to repeat a question a few times.
Absolutely. That is wicked. If you say that, people will be comfortable better than like other comments which I used to hear and I still hear it. Oh, your English is so good. Where did you learn it? I know it's not. I know it's not. And let's cut this crap and get to the point. I don't like just like I like sometimes like talk with them as like kids. No. If you say that, I know that English is not your first language and you're trying your best, and feel free to stumble into what to give me what does it mean than to be stuck into that word. I think this is the best thing you can do when it comes to the language part. And the other part, just give them a space. Try to dig in the juice, because don't expect them to tell you about their free time, because the free time in the Middle East is just like free time. It's just free time. While here, the free time tells you something about your personality. What you do in your free time shows, like, if you do some sort, I don't know, sport or whatever, it just shows you commitment, consistency. It shows you different things. So I think we just need to be open, but in the interviews, try to give and take. It's if you want them to come with something personal, it doesn't help if you're sitting behind and you're just so formal. Start by saying something personal yourself, that would break the ice.
Absolutely. And just realize that people haven't learned to sell themselves, that the other people you're comparing them against are people who've been practicing interviewing with family members, with other, people in their communities. And this is a person who is showing up and doesn't even know what about their background is gonna excite you, so they don't know what to share. So you might need to do a little bit more digging because otherwise you're gonna miss a gem in the dust. It's like Layla when she was applying to jobs. First of all, for the networking part, she had to run around at conferences and ask random people like, "Oh, you work at Google, can you refer me?" just to make sure that her resume wouldn't get lost. Then she
Yeah.
would show up to the interviews and she was just like a deer in the headlights, so she bombed a lot of them. And then when she got hired, she got promoted faster than anybody else, which I'm sure is true, for you and for so many people that you work with as well. Like you said, that dream team of women, right? You
Mm.
need to you need to make the investment if you're going to have a chance to have that dream team. What inspired you, Noor, to join Manara? And how would you describe it to people who don't know what Manara is?
What inspired me, I mean, as I say, it's a dream project. I was like, God, these guys are so awesome. I was like, as I said, I was always involved into these programs escalating like female. I want more female into the IT, and I always like try to do stuff in Norway. And when I read about Manara, I was like, oh my God, this is even bigger. This is like the whole thing is like, I love it. It's amazing. It's motivation. It's inspiring. It's like, seriously, I think you get like, I felt like, why didn't I think about that? I went through that experience. You know what I mean? Like, this is my first thought. Like, I love these girls. I don't know them, but it's just like wicked project. So for the
By the
people
way,
who
Noor,
don't,
we are recruiting to our team. We do have a role for an engineer. Just saying, our team is remote around the world.
I always talk about Manara. I talked about Manara in my job interviews. Like I'm applying for new jobs, and I was telling them about that wicked thing. So for the people who doesn't know about Manara, so Manara is an awesome opportunity for both sides. They're giving opportunities for super ambitious, and honestly, you choose the top of the class. And I'm coming from the Middle East, and I can tell you that you are choosing like the top of the top, like the process that you're going through. You're finding the right, you're not looking only for like grades, you're looking for personalities, you're looking for people are ambitious, looking forward, engaged. Like I never done an interview in Manara without being inspired and get like tumbung stars into my eyes, like oh my God, these people are just so awesome. And in the other hand, I know in tech landscape we need people, we need more diverse people, we need more female to start with. And I think again that the thing with diversity, I think it's nothing to do to be nice. It's profitable. It's good for business. It's proven. It shows everywhere. We're seeing the teams that is diverse is producing better. Get into more ideas. They are not stumbling in the same, like, you're not going around the same circle. You are opening more and more circles. You get different attitudes. You get the team spirit. Don't let me start it. I mean, it's awesome. Like, it's not how you cannot fall in love with Manara program. Of course, I when
I
I
love
first
it.
read it, I was like, I'm gonna apply and I'm gonna hope that you will take me. And even for mentors, we have to go through steps, which I like. You didn't make it like, oh, just come and join us. Like you, I think putting this standard in everything with the mentoring, with the coaching, with the English speaking, all that is just making it more high quality in all perspective. Yeah.
That's so amazing. And how did you hear about us?
Good question. I don't know. I don't really remember. It must be LinkedIn. It must
Uh-huh.
be via,
Somebody
via,
just
via.
yeah,
And
yeah.
funny enough, before I joined Manara, I didn't have any Arabs on my LinkedIn. I don't know why. They were all hidden talent. I never matched anyone. And
Uh-huh.
then after I joined Manara, and I mean, the community is not only between the students, the community that you created even for the mentors. Like, I didn't know that we have a lot of female engineers in all these, like, big tech companies. Like, it's just like, it's that like it's inspiring, it's motivating, it make you connect with people, like, but it's like this is exactly what I love about Manara. It's just like it's amazing community. This is maybe the first second time for you and me to meet, but we can hang around all evening and talk for
Oh
non-stop.
God, I wish I could.
And you know what I
Yes.
mean, like this, like natural bond that come with other people, and you feel like you connected, though you don't really know anything about their stories and the details about it, but you have so much things in common and the ability to agree and disagree. I think that's great, and this is what make Manara a community more than like organization or a company. It's just a community, and makes everyone happy because it gives before it takes, which I love, and everyone there apply for Manara.
No, I think it really goes back to what you said at the beginning around how important it is to feel safe. And we spend so many diverse people, so to say, in software engineering, spend their careers feeling like they're solo, or they occasionally maybe find one other person that they can relate to, and to suddenly find a community of people who feel like home, you feel like you belong, even if they're not all at your company, it just gives you a sense of, yeah, a sense of belonging that I think is grounding and motivating. Thank you so much, Nour, for joining us today. I am so inspired. Have a wonderful rest of your day and enjoy the summer and the sun.
Yes, thank you so much. It was super pleasure talking to you. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Disrupting the Code podcast. You can listen to us on Spotify or wherever you prefer to listen to your podcast. You can also watch our full episodes on the Manara channel on YouTube. Thanks again, and tune in soon for the next episode.